Hello! Today in this loosening practice we're going to be using one of these. It's a prickle stimulating ball. So you can search online for that. It's a particular Pilates type of ball. I'll put a link up to find it anyway, but it's a little more soft and forgiving than some of the much harder, spikier ones that you get. So we're going to use this to elicit fascia release into the insteps. And that really allows us to release how we stand up, how we rise up from the ground, starting with the instep, which is often called the seat of vitality in many kind of movement cultures. And that lifts us up through the inner legs, up through the spine and up into the neck and the back of the skull. And we can get quite closed down, shut down into that whole line from being quite caught and tight in our feet. Now that might be either from wearing shoes, it might be from a lot of sitting where the feet don't get to move around and make space and have that fluidity as they're designed to do. It can also be as a result of chronic stress or even trauma. One of our responses, our survival responses when difficult things happen, is to want to run away. And if we are not able to do that, there's a holding in the feet to stop us back from completing that action. And that can reflect in holding in tissues in the feet. So there are many reasons why we release here. And one of them, as much as anything, is also just to really feel a sense of awake at that place that we ground and that place that we have connection to the earth. So I'm just going to put this down for a second. And before we start to make those changes to the body, and particularly looking at this sense of having pause, we're going to take that beat, take that pause space, just to start to feel what it is to stand up on our feet without that manipulation, without making that change. So if you're happy to do so, close your eyes. If you need to have them open to orient, please do, but just try and keep your gaze nice and soft and steady. And then just letting yourself sway a little on your feet, just feeling what it is to rise up from the ground. Maybe you can feel those channels up the inner legs, up the spine. Maybe it feels like there's some interruption. Maybe it feels a little difficult to open up fully in that way. There's no right or wrong to feel. We're not trying to interpret. It's just to get the lie of the land. So just breathing to feel that space as pause and needing to know what's going on. Pausing, trying to fix anything that we might deem as wrong. Pause without any agenda. Okay, so after that noticing, I'm going to take the ball, and if you need to touch a wall or have your hand onto a chair here to feel balance, please do. It does also have a balancing connotation to it, so you can keep your eyes nice and steady and your breath flowing to help you balance. And then we're just going to start to explore every part of your foot and the ball. So you just let that happen as an exploration. So there's no particular order, there's no particular place we're looking to move into. You'll feel your foot lets you know where you're going. And particularly as you start to get into strong sensations, and you can press quite hard on the ball. So once you get that feedback, just notice that when stuff arises from the base, we can tend to hold ourselves against it at the top. So notice every so often that you release the shoulders, eyes soft, jaw soft, so we can feel without reaction. So even within the movement there is pause. Now particularly getting into the instep, that's the bit we tend to feel quite a lot of tension, quite a lot of stickiness, tightness. You recognise if you do any system like reflexology that sole of the foot is, each part has a relation to a different organ, and that's true across many cultures, called mama points in yoga, for instance. The bases of meridians in Taoism or Chinese medicine. You might feel different areas feel quite sticky or interesting. A lot of colon, adrenal stuff into the instep. So you can feel free to push quite hard in, as long as it doesn't feel like it's too much, like you're crashing into your boundaries. And you can include the outer edge of the foot. It can be a little tricky, but just getting all the way down the edge to the little toe. And then including the heel. So particularly if you have chronic stress or adrenal fatigue, sometimes our heels can get quite itchy or sore. So it's really good just to attend to that often. And then between the toes, so just use that to separate out the toes. It can get a little caught together. Lovely. Last movement into the instep. And then placing the ball aside and just standing. Closing your eyes and feeling. If you close your eyes, you have more of a sense of moving inward, moving into interoception, or how we sense our inner landscape and how that might feel different on the side you've done to the side you haven't. So it might be length, it might be more volume on that side. For me it feels like I'm quite kind of tipping over. That little side feels longer to me. Like the other side is therefore shorter and I'm kind of tipping over. So breathe in to feel that effect. Moving to the other side. So if you get used to doing this on your own, it's very good to also, I'm just moving to the other side now, to also walk before, like a walking meditation before, walk between doing each side and walk after, because then you get a real sense of also how you move up through that, what we call the deep front line. Big fascial line up the middle that gives us a sense of volume, buoyancy when it's open. So exploring this side in its own right. So it's not that we're just going through the motions on the other. Not feeling out the needs on this side. They might be quite different. We're asymmetrical in our organs. That means that the messages we get up from below can be quite different on one side to the other. And breathing, letting the shoulders release, noticing that every so often. So check in every so often. Soft eyes, soft jaw. So notice that particularly if you're frowning, if sensation is coming up that's unfamiliar. So you get used to these sensations and the kind of label of them becomes very different if you start to step away from words of judgment like good or bad. You just feel it as interesting, tight, sticky, wooden. So breathing with response. If you meet something strong, inhale in towards it and exhale to give it space to move through. So we can choose to have that kind of opening response, or notice habits we can have of constricting around things that might feel difficult or strong, intense. Lovely. So feeling again up the outside edge of the little toe. And that heel again. So noticing maybe the difference you felt in each part without getting into comparison and interpretation. It's a keen skill to be able to compare without wanting to deem one better or worse than another. Lovely, and a little bit back to the instep. Just my hands are doing similar things. Hands are so connected to our feet from when we were in trees that you often feel them responding in ways that mirror or complement. Lovely. Putting the ball aside and standing now to feel how that is in terms of volume, in terms of lift. Allowing yourself pause. Pause from needing to comment or interpret. Letting your breath occupy any space that's opened up for you. You can inhale up the body. Exhale down. And if you do that regularly, and I really suggest you do, once you own a prickle stimulating ball, to do it under your feet very regularly makes a massive difference to how we stand up and our sense of self that comes from that deep front line. And you can also do that walking around, as I said, so it's really useful to do that between motions, and you can also have the ball under a desk and just rub your feet on it to make sure you stay stimulated when you have to be sedentary. Namaste.